Why are your tits out? Hey gorgeous, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maddie, for those of you who are new, and for those of you who are not new, welcome back. On this channel, I love to react to both animation and romance novels, two things I have been trying to get much more into in the past couple of months, and so in order to really get to explore those fandoms and those genres, I'm doing it online. Because I am a fantasy and sci-fi reader and writer, I have decided to dedicate this summer to really getting into contemporary romance. I love a good rom-com, but I've never really been a dedicated romance reader when there wasn't something else going on, some kind of like fantasy world or political intrigue or something like that. So I put up a poll on my Instagram, which is where I'll be doing all of my polls and Q&As for video ideas, and asked you guys what author I should start with, and Ali Hazelwood won. So we are starting off with the big one, which is the love hypothesis. This is going to be a reading vlog where I am going through this. I've heard really good things about it. I know that it is Reylo fanfiction. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I think that there's a lot of discussion going on between whether or not fanfiction should be published. I think that if it's a fandom that is fictional and it's not fanfic off of real people, I think that's totally chill. And honestly, this seems original enough that it's got that kind of separation from Star Wars as a whole. So super stoked about this. So if you have any suggestions for me afterwards, I know that she has some supernatural or fantasy romance books. Happy to do those as well, but for right now it's Love Hypothesis, Love Theoretically, and then Two Can Play is the third one that I will be doing. Once we get through Ali Hazelwood, we will be moving on to Emily Henry. So if you have any Emily Henry books that you absolutely love, you think that everyone should be reading them if they're going to get into the romance genre, please comment them below so that I can put them on the list so that I can tackle them later this summer. Anywho, let's jump into this. Is my halfway point check-in. I'm gonna be so for real, I'm really trying. I'm really trying to read this with an open mind. I want to be a romance girly, but for this specifically, I have some major issues with it. For starters, it's very clear that this used to be fanfic. There is absolutely nothing wrong with changing the names in a fanfiction and publishing it as a book. I think that that is totally fine in terms of publications, especially because you have a fan base, you know people like it, so it's easy to market. Nothing wrong with that. There is a type of internal monologuing that exists across fanfiction, is very easily identifiable, and it permeates the entirety of this book. There is something about the rambliness of an internal quirky girl monologue that I really just can't get behind, and I understand that that is the point. I know that she's supposed to be like socially awkward, really struggling with the new emotions and the mistakes that she's making. I get that. The way that this is written, it's personally not my cup of tea. With that being said, another glaring issue that I have, characters should not be conscious of the genre that they're in. They're literally having a conversation about a hotel, and she's like, oh, we can't share a room because there's only going to be one bed. And he's super confused because who says that? And he says, I can send you my booking. It says it's a double. That's not going to be a problem. And she goes, no, this is what always happens. When? Who's in this situation the way that you are? But she's talking about romance. Like, she's talking about the romance genre, saying this always happens. That's the trope. There's no trope. This is reality. This is your life. You don't know you're in a romance book, so why are you talking like you do? It's a really big issue for me, especially when it comes to fanfiction writing and how that translates into published literature, that the characters have a self-awareness of the genre that they are living in. You're reminding me this is a book. You're reminding me this is a book in a specific genre, and she's aware of the tropes as well. I don't understand why books do that. It's not like a quirky fun thing for you to be meta. So over halfway. Let's see if the back half of this improves my opinions of Olive, and then we will get to my full thoughts at the end. Also, the picnic? Sir, you work here. This is a work event. These are you students. Why are your tits out? Why is your shirt off? You're playing ultimate frisbee with your shirt off in front of your students? Anyway, back to finishing the book. Okay, Okay, I have officially finished reading The Love Hypothesis, my first contemporary romance novel as an adult reader. Yay! I'm gonna break down my review into 3 different categories, which is going to be style of writing, plot, and overall enjoyment. So for the style of writing, which I did talk about previously in my kind of halfway point check-in, it's very clear that it was originally a fanfiction. And again, that is not a bad thing. That is a style of writing that is very modern, and it's very, in my opinion, connected to internet culture in its references, in the use of specific brands, because when you're writing for fanfiction, because that is free and you're doing it kind of for fun on public platforms, you're not limited to the copyrights of certain things like you would be for film and for television. Again, it's not a bad thing, it's just something that reminds me of pieces of fiction that I have read that were not as mature. This is mature for a fanfiction, I will be completely honest about that, but it's also not a ship that I would have naturally gravitated towards, and so I feel like when you go to fanfiction, you are going for a specific ship, for a specific couple, for specific characters. I wasn't really a Reylo girly, so this specific like sunshine grumpy pairing isn't something I was into in the original context. For this one, I do enjoy the characters and the individuality that Ali Hazelwood gave to Olive and Adam in comparison to Rey and Kylo Ren, but for the style of it, the internal monologue just really wasn't something I could vibe with. I feel like the repetition of certain things, which I understand is when you have a character who is awkward and quirky and naturally anxious, the repetition of things in an internal monologue is normal, and it brings that across. I do feel like through this writing style, the characters were portrayed very well. I have a sense of who they are, I understand their dynamics, and they do feel like individual people separate from the fanfiction-ness of this book. But the writing style was just really tough for me to get through because I didn't really enjoy it, and so I did find myself at points kind of jumping to dialogue just to get through certain scenes. When it comes to the overall plot of the book, I think that towards the latter half of this, I was enjoying it a lot more. It felt a lot more well-rounded of a story. It didn't feel like it was so much in the rom-com of it all when we were really in that, oh, I was just in Silence of the Lambs, not Dark Knight Rises, Dark Night of the Soul. When you get to the 3rd act, I was really engaged because, especially when you're focusing on a character that is a woman in STEM, specifically in medicine and in cancer research, there's a lot of politics that goes on in there, and I do really, really appreciate that Ali Hazelwood woven that into the plot in a way that is still super engaging, and it's not overtaken by the romance. It doesn't feel like it's a sub thing that doesn't hold as much weight or as much relevance or as high of stakes in the narrative. I think that once we get to the conference, that's when I was really starting to connect with these characters and to care about their lives and their grants and really, really feeling for Olive in those moments. And up until that point, I didn't really resonate with her as a character, but seeing her care for things and seeing her less as a character and more as a woman in a very male-dominated field, I think Ali Hazelwood handled that really well, and I enjoyed that section. Which brings us to our last piece, which is my overall enjoyment. This was a very quick read. It was a very easy read. It wasn't terribly stimulating, but that doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy it. It was nice. I would not give this as a favorite book. I don't think that it's really even something that I would recommend, just because I am in a lot of fantasy spheres, and so that's not really what people are gravitating towards. But I wouldn't give this a poor rating. I would say that it was a decently written book. I feel like the character dynamics are really interesting and fun to read. I would say that the side characters to me were a lot more interesting. I would love to know more about like Malcolm and Holden's relationship. I would love to learn more about An. I think that those characters just felt more interesting than Olive, unfortunately. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is a bad book. I understand why people enjoy this so much. But again, I think that I'm still working with the internal bias of this isn't the stuff that I normally read. It's very different than what I normally read. And so that's why I wanted to do this, because I want to be one of you. I really, really want to understand romance books from this, because I do love early 2000s and 90s rom-coms, and I want to be someone who enjoys them as books as well, because they must be popular for a reason. Like, so many people enjoy these books, but this one just wasn't. I don't think this one was for me. I'm a bit more excited about Love Theoretically, because I think this has to do with physics, and the fantasy book that I'm writing right now has me doing a lot of research on mechanical physics. I think this is based on the title, Theoretical Physics, but I am excited. I want to give these a shot. This is what we're doing next week, if you have any interest in that. We're also doing, on the anime side of things, Jujutsu Kaisen. That's the dichotomy of what I'm doing on my channel. Through the next 3 months, we're going to be reading a lot of romance, and it's gonna be fine. I'm like like self-soothing after I read these because I'm just like, everything is fine. You can get back to your fantasy books as soon as you want to, and I will. Join me next week for Love Theoretically and continue to follow my channel. I really do want to be a part of this community because I'll be so honest, you guys look like you're having so much fun online. I'm jealous of that and I want to be a part of that. So if you have any recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. So like, subscribe, comment all of your romance recommendations and your romance author recommendations, and as soon as that's an option, hype up the video if you can. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.